and welcome to ZBand, the ASEO show by and for youth. Four young voices, different paths, but one goal. Speaking with those who are reshaping the future. No filters, no intermediaries, just a real conversation. Today, we're talking about technology. Not the technology that is in our phone, but the one that is reshaping global powers. We're talking about artificial intelligence, we're talking about biotechnology, robotics. Behind these words, there is a global race. A race for power, a race for hegemony, a race for influence, and a race for the future. And this race concerns all of us directly. It focuses on our education, our careers, and potentially our opportunities. So, who's leading? Who is falling behind? And what does it exactly mean to win in this competition? To explore this, we have today Mrs. Abigail Kukura. She is the Director of Future Technology Platforms at the Special Competitive Studies Project in Washington, D.C. Mrs. Kukura analyzes how the US, China, and other major powers compete in critical technologies, of course, and helps shapes strategic thinking around that competition. Mrs. Abigail Kukura, welcome to ZBand.
Thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be here.
Thank you. So thank you for being with us and for choosing to speak directly with youth. I am Salima Kallel, a business student at Tunis Business School, University of Tunis, and I'm not alone in this interview. With me, we have Mr. Ahmed Maqnin. He is a Chevening alumnus and a holder of Master of Science in FinTech. There's also with us Mrs. Farah Jameli. She's a second-year master's student at Tunis Business School. And finally, we have Mr. Jaser Riehi. He is a self-employed entrepreneur managing a crowdfunding platform. Each of us will lead this interview or a part of an interview that we're having today. So let's start with the race itself. Here, we're trying to know who's leading this race, who is catching up, and who is winning in other terms. So my first question, Mrs. Kukura, you are part of the Special Competitive Studies project, which is founded on the belief that the US has to be the forefront of this competition. And from your perspective, we all want to know today who is really leading this technology race and what is the real meaning of winning such a competition.
It's a great question. I'm going to start by giving a little bit of context on what SCSP is. I am an advisor to SCSP today. I worked at the organization for 4.5 years, ended my full-time role in December, and now work on consulting. But the work that SCSP is doing, I think, is very, very important for understanding and ultimately winning and helping work together with our allies and partners to win this global technology competition. So the reason that the Special Competitive Studies Project, or SCSP, was created was on the heels of a national effort in the US Congress to understand artificial intelligence and its impact on national security. The co-founder or the founder of and chair of Google, Dr. Eric Schmidt, was the chair of this congressional commission called the National Security Commission on Artificial Intelligence that started in 2019 and was tasked by the US Congress with understanding where is the United States in AI today? How does it compete with other countries, and specifically China, in leading this technology? And how do we position and organize the United States to win that race? So that effort culminated in 2021. But Dr. Schmidt wanted to, he felt that there was a lot more work to be done in building the understanding, in helping organize the United States to win that race, and also to look beyond AI at the other technology areas that AI was enabling and accelerating and that were converging to really create a new era of technology competition. So he created the Special Competitive Studies Project and brought the leader from the Congressional Commission to lead it. And SCSP is a nonprofit. It studies AI and emerging technologies through a number of different lenses. So looking at foreign policy, economy, defense, society, and then and governance. And the team I was on is called Future Technology Platforms. So the way that team was looking at these issues was through an ecosystem approach, looking across the innovation ecosystems and the various actors in them, and then also looking at specific technologies themselves and coming up with strategies for how can the United States and its allies win this race, and how do we think about where the competition stands today, which brings me to your question about who is winning, what does winning mean, what does winning look like, and why do we care about that? And I think you're spot on that this is a race in not just artificial intelligence, but many other technologies like biotechnology, manufacturing, new energy systems. So the way that I like to think about this is we are at the cusp of an era where there are multiple general purpose technologies that are being enabled by and accelerated by AI, and they're converging and really changing the nature and pace of innovation itself. So if you look at historical eras of technology, there was electrification, where we got the light bulb, we understood how to create light. That was then built upon with the age of mechanization. We understood how to build and make machines, and we also continued to use electricity. There was the age of digitization, where we had the computer and we started to have digital worlds. We're now in an age of intelligentification, where we have AI that is combining and sticking and stacking upon all of those other technology eras. And then the next era that's upon us is not just AI in the digital world, but the physical and the biotechnical world as well. So we have AI, networks, and compute. So the hardware, the software, and the networks that make up our digital world, those are all races that the United States and China have really been competing in for the past 5 to 10 years. Yeah. I think where the United States has been really strong and at the forefront is in invention. So in having the startups, the innovation, the technological breakthroughs for new technologies and the capital markets to sort of build thriving startup industries and academia that really draws in talent from around the world. Where the United States is struggling and how it has sort of woken up to the fact that it's in a competition over these areas is in commercialization and scale of these technologies. So when there is hardware involved, when there are supply chains involved, and when there is cost is a major factor in being able to commercialize and sell them to the world, that's where our strengths are challenged a bit in a race with a competitor that is really focused on being a technological superpower and has different structures that enable it to compete differently in capital markets. So there are areas where China is not as good with sort of having the invention, but they're able to really rapidly follow and be fast followers and commercialize and scale and sell and market to the world in ways that the United States is not. So those are the digital domains. If you think about 5G is one area where, for example, the United States invented the technology itself, but it was China that really dominated the commercialization around the world. Semiconductors, another technology invented in the United States, and that there's been a major effort to onshore the supply chains, but it's a race that we once again found ourselves behind in. And AI is certainly an active area of competition. It's not something where you can say the United States has won for good. One, because there's many dynamics that make it competitive, like open source, for example. You cannot count on just the frontier models that are developed mostly by AI companies being the best in the world, because maybe they would be the most capable or likely most capable. But the open source AI models like DeepSeek have also proven to be very competitive. And it's not just a race about the quality of the model, it's also about adoption and which models are being used around the world.
Yeah.
And then the other piece is that it's an infrastructure race. So it's not just the models themselves, but it's the major compute power that is needed to power those models. That's something where the United States has policies that are seeking to constrain China. And then I think most importantly, it's the energy. How do you power these AI models, and what are the energy systems that are going to be able to power them long term? And that's an area where the United States is thinking about a lot. There are some really promising and interesting energy technologies in the future, like fusion energy, something I spent a lot of time thinking about. We can talk more about, and advanced nuclear and small modular reactors and things like that, geothermal. But these are all sort of at nascent stages or not yet being commercialized at scale, and it's not guaranteed that the United States will be in the lead. So we haven't even talked yet about the next wave of technologies like biotechnology, advanced manufacturing, energy. But what I'll just say there to wrap up is that this next set of technologies are really much more in the physical world and require patient capital. They require scale. They require time. They're hardware intensive. And the strengths that the United States brings are not necessarily going to be enough to succeed in those technologies. So I think a lot of policy time needs to be spent on that if there are areas that the United States cares to win.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank
Absolutely.
you for the inspiring answer. Actually, we entered like the few questions that we have, but I very much appreciated the link that we're gonna do right now, because now you're talking about the innovation of the US, however, the weaknesses in the part of commercialization. But if we want, for example, to compare and to put the United States, China, and Europe side by side, what is, according to you, the most fundamental strategic difference in how they're approaching AI, for example, or they're approaching in general the advanced technologies? For example, when we say we didn't put now Europe on the side, but of course they are also a global power that they are aiming to do this. So what is the answer?
Yeah, I'll answer this question just about AI, but I think some of the answer applies to other technologies as well.
Yes.
I think with the United States, as I mentioned, the real strength and the strategic model is invention and innovation. So the combination of private capital, of thriving academic sector, of startups leads to really impressive and competitive inventions. So the frontier AI models we see are coming out of the United States. And I should say that's built upon and really a result of decades of investment in basic research in universities, in the national laboratory ecosystem that created the conditions in the ecosystem for that kind of invention to be able to occur. In China, it's, I think, really, it's about doing as much as you can through brute force and making the inventions work sort of rapidly following or being able to sort of work around the constraints that China has in its system to be able to match or even exceed what the United States has invented. So I think DeepSeek was a real wake-up call to the United States that all of these compute policies and chip controls that the United States has, China can find a way to work around them and make an AI model with much less parameters, with much less energy. Certainly, what you see for DeepSeek statistics on face value is not the full story. There's some chip smuggling and things that we're learning more about that maybe made the picture a little bit more complicated, but working around the constraints to invent through brute force and sort of apply all the resources of the state to achieve progress and match, if not exceed, what the inventions are that are coming out of I think, mainly the United States. And then Europe, I think where Europe is really trying to lead is in regulation and governance of AI. So that's been a major focus of Europe and a policy conversation between the United States and Europe. But I think it's evident that Europe has been a leader in sort of charting and framing what the regulations and governance surrounding AI will look like. And that's something that the world, for better or worse, is paying a lot of attention to, and other systems that do develop are based off of that model to some extent, or at least learning from it. So there's something to be said for those efforts, and the challenges of implementing regulation of AI, I think, is something that the world learns a lot from.
Yes. So now we're talking a lot about the weaknesses or the strengths or of the blocks that we're talking about, China, US, and in Europe. So, and of course, we want to know your view about the most underestimated vulnerability today within any of these blocks. So when we're talking about Europe or China, what is actually pushing them down to not be the one leading at some point?
For Europe or China, or can I answer
for all
America?
of this? Okay. It's just like an example.
Yeah, I think the most underestimated weakness is supply chains, and all of the materials and components and rare earth elements and minerals and materials. So everything from the subsystems down to the critical minerals that go into a product, I think is something the United States is really only starting to understand that it needs to look at, and that it needs to think about and proactively develop policies for. So AI is one example where we're starting to better understand the AI supply chains, and there's things that geopolitics, we won't ignore the fact that there's a major war going on right now in Iran, and that's affecting the supply chains for things like helium, which are important for making semiconductor components, and also LNG access for Taiwan and the energy it needs to build semiconductors. So we're learning in real time what the impact of supply chains can be. And I think as technology moves more into the physical world and involves things like biomanufacturing and advanced manufacturing, advanced materials, new energy systems, there will be so many more supply chains that we really need to master and think about. And that's where I think policy really matters, because it's not something the United States or any country can do on its own. It requires working with friends and allies and partners, and friend-shoring our supply chains, building sort of trusted networks for supply chains. And that's something that I think current US policy is not totally optimized for.
I see. Thank you. So thank you, Mrs. Kukura.
Absolutely.
We've just outlined kind of the global picture for everyone, I hope. And now we're knowing, or we know who is competing, who is, and how and with which challenges they have, or which advantages they have. But of course, behind these national strategies lies a more concrete reality. Here we're talking about innovation ecosystems, we're talking about the companies, we're talking about research labs, and the partnerships that make all of this possible. So that's what we're gonna be having an answer for with Mr. Jisr Riehi, the self-employed entrepreneur managing a crowdfunding platform, with him. Thank you.